and I am just gonna ask you a few basic questions.
Okay.
Obviously, if you all have questions, please ask them. Eventually, I will run out of questions. So if you all want to know anything at all, just raise your hand, and then we will.
We'll address it.
Heck yeah.
Or give you a fatality. And I'm sure we'll get a lot of hits, it being on YouTube. So.
All right, so we're gonna start with the most basic question.
Okay.
How did you get started with martial arts, and what was your first kind of big break, or like how did your martial arts kind of translate into Mortal Kombat?
I started martial arts in 1969. But before that, I had a fascination. When I was growing up, there was a TV show called Charlie Chan, the Detective. It was black and white and was on Sunday. And Sunday, like afternoon, after the Sunday cartoons, the few. Saturday was the big cartoon day, but Sunday was the big kind of time for me to spend time with my dad. Mm-hmm. So I had two older brothers, but they were much older. They didn't want to hang out with me because they were way older than I am. Mm-hmm. So I would hang out with my dad on Sunday and watch cartoons. And one of the things we would watch is Charlie Chan the Detective. He was a Chinese detective, and in one series, there was this big muscular guy, and Charlie Chan threw this guy with a judo throw. And I was like, holy cow, that's awesome. And I was thinking, like, me being a little guy and my brothers being bigger and always picking on me, I was like, man, I'm going to learn I was like, I want to learn how to do that. And my dad was like, well, my dad served in the U.S. military, and he was like, oh, I can show you that throw. And so my dad showed me my first throw. And I was always intrigued by it. And so later on, I would, eventually I would bug my father enough, so he took me to martial art lessons. And anyway, years later, growing up watching cartoons, and my brother would collect comic books, so I started learning older brother would collect comic books, Ruben. And so I started like collecting comic books. So eventually I fell in with this group that were like our friend Andy, and later on he would become famous because he did all the artwork for the original Nintendo. So he had this bright idea. He's like, you know what, I'm going to get all this group together. So he would have, like myself being a martial artist and collecting comics, would have other artists, break dancers, DJs, all coming to his house all hours of the night and just hanging out together. Like trying to just pretending to be creative and thinking of these projects and
like
these these future movies, which we really never did. But one of the guys who wanted to do a movie his name was John Tobias. So he wanted to be a director and do like a kung fu movie, and do martial arts. So we hung out for a little bit, and years later I get a call from him, and he asked me, hey, I have an idea for a fighting game. I want to do a live fighting game, and I want to pitch it to this company called Midway that I work for. So we basically snuck in to Midway Studios to shoot a video tape of myself, my brother Carlos, who later on turned out to be Raiden, and our friend Rich DeVizio, who turned out to be Kano. And he is, really briefly, Kano is the originator who coined the phrase, "Get over here." He's the one who came up with the idea to that phrase. Wow. But anyway, we shot this videotape, and then John drew these characters, and then he presented that to Midway Games for us to do. They called it Space Filler. So it was going to be 200 arcade games, so that the Midway name could be out there. So that's how this break got started.
Holy crap, that is awesome.